Are you ready to learn about number idioms? From being on cloud 9 to starting from square one, number idioms play an essential role in our everyday language. In this video, we're going to explore the meanings behind some of the most common number idioms and how to use them in everyday conversation. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Just a quick recap. Idioms are phrases that has meaning different from the literal meaning of the words. That's why they can be quite confusing for non-native speakers. Today, I've selected 13 of the most common number idioms from 0 to 12. I'll explain the meaning one by one and then give you a sample sentence how we can use them. At the end of the video, I'll make a story using all of these idioms. It's gonna be fun. Let's start with the first one. Zero in on. This idiom means to focus on something very closely. For example, I need to zero in on my studies if I want to get good grades in the exam. I need to zero in on my studies if I want to get good grades in the exam. Zero in on.
They zero in on this so.
The next one. Back to square one. This idiom means to start over again. For example, after we realized our mistake, we had to go back to square one and start the project from scratch. After we realized our mistake, we had to go back to square one and start the project from scratch. Back to square one.
Back to square one.
Second thoughts. This idiom means to have doubts or reconsider something. For example, after thinking about it, I had second thoughts about accepting the job offer. After thinking about it, I had second thoughts about accepting the job offer. Second thoughts.
Second thoughts?
No second thoughts.
Two's company, three's a crowd. This idiom means that having too many people around can spoil the fun. For example, I wanted to spend some quality time with my best friend, but when her other friends showed up, I felt like two's company, three's a crowd. I wanted to spend some quality time with my best friend, but when her other friends showed up, I felt like two's company, three's a crowd. Two's company, three's a crowd.
How about two's company, three's a crowd?
This one is funny. On all fours. This idiom means to crawl on your hands and knees. For example, after the kids spilled juice on the floor, I had to get down on all fours to clean it up. After the kids spilled juice on the floor, I had to get down on all fours to clean it up. On all fours. Yeah, do you know which four? Your hands and your legs.
All around the ceiling on all fours. Come on.
Next one, take 5. This idiom means to take a short break. For example, let's take 5 and grab some coffee before we start the next meeting. Let's take 5 and grab some coffee before we start the next meeting. Take 5.
Take 5.
6 feet under. This idiom means to be dead and buried. For example, after my grandmother passed away, she was laid to rest 6 feet under.
Side by side, 6 feet under.
Moving on. 7-day wonder. This idiom means something that is popular for a short time and then quickly forgotten. For example, the new restaurant was a 7-day wonder, and after a week, no one wanted to eat there anymore. The new restaurant was a 7-day wonder, and after a week, no one wanted to eat there anymore. 7-day wonder. Behind the 8 ball. This idiom means to be in a difficult situation. For example, after losing my job, I found myself behind the 8 ball with my bills piling up. After losing my job, I found myself behind the 8 ball with my bills piling up. Behind the 8 ball.
Oh, I'm really behind the 8 ball now.
Next one we have on cloud 9. This idiom means to be extremely, extremely happy. For example, after getting accepted into my dream college, I was on cloud 9 for days. After getting accepted into my dream college, I was on cloud 9 for days. On cloud 9.
I was on cloud 9.
You know, what's the best way to remember these idioms? Try to make it into a sentence and comment down below. Moving on, perfect 10. This idiom means to be perfect. For example, the presentation was a perfect 10 and everyone was impressed with the work. The presentation was a perfect 10 and everyone was impressed with the work. Perfect 10.
Pretty good.
Perfect 10.
All right, moving on to number 11. At the 11th hour. This idiom means to do something at the last minute. For example, I finished my project at the 11th hour and submitted it just before the deadline. I finished my project at the 11th hour and submitted it just before the deadline. At the 11th hour.
I'm sure I'll come up with something at the 11th hour.
All right, the last one, number 12. A dime a dozen. A dozen means 12. This idiom means something that is easily available or common. For example, in the city, street vendors selling souvenirs are a dime a dozen. In the city, street vendors selling souvenirs are a dime a dozen. A dime a dozen.
Guys like us, we are a dime a dozen.
All right, have you jotted down all the idioms? Are you ready for the story now? Remember, you can pause the video anytime you want. I'll read out the story at a normal pace, see if you can identify the number idioms we've just learned. The context of the story should help you further consolidate the meaning. All right, let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a college student named Sarah. She had a big exam coming up, and she needed to ace it if she wanted to pass the class. So she decided to zero in on her studies and focus on nothing else until the exam was over. But despite all her hard work, Sarah failed the exam. She was devastated and felt like she was back to square one. Sarah had second thoughts about her choice of major and began to question if she was on the right path. As she was feeling pretty down, her friend Michelle came over to cheer her up. But when Michelle invited a few more friends over to hang out, Sarah started to feel like two's company, three's a crowd. Michelle and Sarah decided to take a break and watch some movies. During one of the films, there was a scene where the main character had to crawl on all fours to get past a trap. Michelle laughed and said, "That's just like when you were studying for your exam." After the movie, Michelle had to leave, but before she did, she told Sarah to take 5 and relax. She knew that Sarah needed a break from her stressful day. That night, Sarah went to bed feeling like she was 6 feet under. But the next day, she woke up to find that the sun was shining and the birds were singing. Sarah felt like a 7-day wonder, happy and carefree. But that didn't last long. Sarah realized that she was behind the 8 ball and needed to figure out a way to pass the class. She then decided to meet with her professor and ask for extra help. After the meeting, Sarah was feeling much better. She was on cloud 9 and felt confident that she could pass the class. She worked hard and got a perfect 10 on her next exam. But there was still one more exam left. Sarah had been procrastinating and hadn't studied at all. She decided to work on it at the 11th hour and miraculously passed the exam. Whoa, it is a miracle. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the story, but don't revise for exam at the 11th hour. Spaced repetition is the key. If you want to find out what spaced repetition is, check out this video here. Anyway, these were some of the most commonly used number idioms, and I hope that you enjoyed this video and learned something new today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more fun and informative videos like this one. Thanks for watching. Bye!